Welcome to Shareholder Q&A, our production of AGORACOM, in which we take questions from shareholders and then ask them to CEOs to answer. With us today, needs no introduction, guys, Steve McCauley, CEO, Empower Clinics, trades on the CSE under CBDT. For our friends in the US, EPWCF, and for our friends in Europe, 8EC. Normally, I do a preamble if it was an interview for the general public, but this is a shareholder Q&A. You know what the company's all about, and Steve's going to go over it anyways. Steve, welcome back.
Hey, George, thank you for having me on. Always enjoy the chance to see you and talk to our good shareholder base.
Yep, and we got some great questions from them today. Obviously, this is one that's going to be watched more than most, and that's hard to believe because they're all watched by the thousands. But before we get into the questions, today you put out a press release demonstrating your strength. We don't need to go over the details because we read those, but what I'd love to hear from you is how strong is the company financially, operationally, and its growth prospects? How are you feeling today?
Well, I mean, it's fundamentally just in great shape. It's in the best shape it's ever been in by leaps and bounds. We have been so fortunate to have a consistent run in converting these warrants in. There's been a lot of excitement from our shareholders, and that's translated directly into cash in our accounts. And we've crossed well through 10.5 received already. We're going to blow through 11 million here, in the next few days, frankly, and that's just giving us such a strong base to work with. Because we've had so much extra cash flow, it was also appropriate to be able to do some balance sheet work and tidy up some long-term debt from some early investors that were back in the Priveco. And we really appreciate their support all these years, but it was time for us to, close that off our books. So that's going to position us in an even better way with our balance sheet going forward to continue to evolve. Now, operationally, things are just great. We, Chi Medical Laboratory are doing tremendous amount of things. Their specimen processing rates are continuing to increase on a sort of average daily rate. The new Chi saliva tests, our first shipments arrived to Canada on Friday afternoon. We're already distributing those to potential distribution partners like our pharmacy partners or grocery store chains, because there's a lot of excitement here in Canada for that home-based saliva test kit.
That's great to hear.
Yeah, and the other side is what's happening with our Canadian clinic acquisition. So I couldn't be happier about how that's progressing. We've got the 3 new locations that have been announced, or that work is commencing now. We're working very closely with our partners on that, and we've got a pipeline that we'll be announcing very soon. And we're just getting into this rhythm of doing new LOIs, because what we do in our rhythm is we do a specific LOI. It's a templated LOI that we've already agreed on. But each location is different. It has different square footage. It has different rental rates. It might have different tenants improvement components, whatever the case may be. So we do binding letter of intent. We then recruit our physicians for that location. In the meantime, we're doing the lease agreement and starting whatever construction might be needed and setting that ribbon cutting date, ahead, usually sort of 4 to 6 weeks from that time period. And then we're starting to see patients. So this is our kind of new rhythm for our Canadian marketplace. And we anticipate that this is going to be our rhythm for many quarters and years to come as we continue to scale the healthcare footprint in Canada.
The 30 clinics is, I'm treating more like a phase 1. I don't think that's your cap. But some people have been asking, we're talking, how long do you think, and I'm not trying to stick you to a precise projection, but how long do you think it'll take to get to the first 30 clinics and then keep moving from there and accelerating from there?
Yeah, so I mean, if I would say, if I look at the outlook on kind of quarter by quarter by quarter, I mean, we've got the possibility of really having 8 through 10 kind of identified letters of intent kind of underway as we're getting through to the end of the first quarter, going into the start of the second quarter. Then it's probably reasonable for us to see that, those types of volumes are going to continue coming to us each quarter. So quarter over quarter through the year, we're going to be in various stages of letter of intent, build out, opening, and then steady state managing patients. So, I mean, it's definitely possible for us to have that count of 30, in whatever stage, as we get through 2021. And then, we'll kind of have a rhythm of, what we can actually deal with, because we will reach a sort of a state where you're going to have a certain level of capacity, whether that's the upfront part in construction or recruitment or grand opening and kind of steady state. So we're getting that rhythm down, and Dr. Jordan and Dr. Aviv are getting comfortable with that kind of rhythm with our partners. And I think we all need to be pretty optimistic about how it looks, because I can tell you on the ground, operationally, our divisions are doing great. We're generating cash, and we've got a nice balance sheet and bank balance to work with. So long-term prospects, I think, are solid, really solid.
And I'm going to ask you, if it's okay for 30 seconds, how's the relationship with Rexall? Because sometimes you have small cap company, big corporation, and there are disconnects. We see in the mining world, we see it everywhere. If you can maybe characterize it, and I know you don't like to talk about this stuff too much because you have that respect for the corporate, hierarchy, but how does the relationship?
Yeah, I describe it as the best it's ever been. I work closely with their executive team. We've worked with them this week. Met with their president last week one-on-one to really solidify sort of executive to executive, president to CEO, where we are and kind of what our program looks like going forward. So again, without sort of again, respecting the boundaries of their corporate environment,
Right.
I can characterize things as in great shape, from a relationship standpoint. So they're definitely happy and excited. We, of course, are happy and excited, and we're looking forward to deploying our resources for what's going to be a tremendous initiative. And I want everybody to understand the impact of what's going on. We're talking about impacting the lives of Canadians in the communities where they live. And that is a very important responsibility. Now, the business side of it, the business and the economics, we've really got that figured out. We understand how to manage physicians, and we know how to do it in a profitable manner. But I'm excited for just the impact that we can make to local communities. And I think our partners feel that that's one of the most important features for them also.
And that's not a surprise, right? I mean, I was pounding the table the fact that you're Six Sigma certified from the first day we met, and a lot of people didn't even know who Empower was, didn't know who you were, and certainly didn't know what Six Sigma went. But now they get it. In fact, we see it all over bulletin boards everywhere, right? Six Sigma, Steve. So that doesn't surprise me at all that you've got this down now to a fantastic, optimized process.
Yeah. So, and actually optimization is exactly the right word. It's really, operational optimization of all of our processes. We have to find the best and most efficient way to operate for sustainability. We have to be able to, obviously negotiate up front, design a relationship, but then we have to start to take the steps to implement, and then one step. So the concept of Six Sigma, and if you look up anything related to Six Sigma, you'll see an acronym called DMAIC, DMAIC. So it's define, measure, analyze, improve, control, and that's the underlying foundation of Six Sigma itself. So I'm excited to bring some of that to bear with our operational teams. I would certainly expect at some point that we'll literally bring more Six Sigma resources to our public company to really help our physicians and our operational team make sure that we are operating with the best and most efficient processes that we possibly can.
And you may be hiring on shareholders at that point, because we see some shareholders mention the fact that they're taking Six Sigma courses, and so you may be hiring shareholders at some point, but that's good. And Steve, what's amazing here is that if you just had the lab and nothing else, that's a company maker. And you've announced that you announced that you're doubling Now you announce that you're tripling capacity.
Yeah.
So we've got to assume that things are going great at the lab. We'll wait for further information or financials, but that's obviously that's what people think, right?
Well, it is. I mean, this again, going back to sort of operational efficiencies, we cannot be efficient at Chi Medical under its current size of operations with its number of people. We need to hire good quality people for a whole host of roles within Chi Medical. We've got the imminent launch of our kitest.com website. So, we're anticipating to potentially push that live tomorrow without marketing spend, but certainly, so as an example, I myself personally yesterday bought 2 test kits on kitest.com. It's password protected right now, but we needed to test the program. We needed to test different credit cards. We needed to test the entire, email confirmation system. So it all worked beautifully. I was very pleased, so much so that I've given them the green light to punch it live, hopefully tomorrow. And kind of all of us, investors, followers would have the opportunity to go, take it for a test drive. And so we can get some more sort of live, QA on the site before we turn on, the nationwide marketing dollars. So,
well, I've got family vacationing that they had to go away. So I know they're going to be ordering.
Yeah, so it's a perfect example of how to best utilize it. The executive travel orders, really have worked into our favor, but that product being a home-based, self-administered product, and I can take it with me in my suitcase when I'm going, or if you're already traveling and you're in the U.S. as an example, you go ahead and order it, and in anticipation of that 72-hour window that starts when you need to get back on your plane.
So before we move on to the shareholder questions and addressing the one elephant in the room, obviously we're going to want to talk about your job as a CEO is you don't live in the present. You're always looking down the road. If it's March the 4th, you're already living on June 4th, October 4th. You're living quarters down the road. Assuming everything goes fine, everything stays its lane, nothing goes perfect. That's not what we're asking for. But if everything just goes according to plan now that you've got laid out, how does the company look 12, 24 months from now?
The outlook is really good. It's a pleasure to work from this base of stability compared to what we were working with previously as we were trying to improve the message, improve the business model, execute on opportunities. Working from a basis of having a much stronger balance sheet, a much better market cap, divisions that are really pulling their weight, now allows me to support that with other accretive acquisitions, research and development, hiring in key people to advance different sections and different divisions, striking up new partnerships. So long term, I feel great about it because remember what we're doing, like these healthcare divisions or the healthcare centers, these are built for long term. This is not a short term, near term revenue strategy. This is once you've got them, they're there for you quarter over quarter, year over year, over year, over year, over year. We can depend on that revenue. We can depend on that free cash flow, and we can depend on the fact that we'll have, many hundreds or potentially thousands of employees. We will have literally access to millions of patients, right? And what we're doing on Chi Medical is far beyond a current COVID-19 strategy. We are certainly taking advantage of our capabilities right now, but we're building for a national brand and we're building for a diversified portfolio of testing products, not just COVID-19 testing products. And so we've got a real strategy coming together on the Chi Medical division, and we'll be looking forward to updating the market further. We're excited about kitest.com, and I'm equally excited about partnerships with other pharmacy partners and distribution partners, because I think that the Kai
Okay.
saliva test kit is ideally suited to be on the shelves of a pharmacy or a grocery store.
You just gotta slide that in there. Other pharmacy partners, other distribution partners. Okay, I guess I can't ask specifics on that, obviously.
Yeah, but
But that's
there's really positive feedback from a variety of distribution type partners that are, have many millions of Canadian customers, loyal customers, again, in the communities where they operate. That is, pretty ideal situation, I believe, as another distribution point for this home-based saliva test.
all right. And I just want to make one comment that with your financials, you mentioned that you retired debt. One thing a lot of people don't realize, because I see it all the time, you could easily retire that debt by issuing stock. Easily, painless, and I think 95% of CEOs, that's what they do. They go, "Oh, I'll just issue stock against that debt, and I can just keep my cash." The fact that you actually paid off that debt in cash, for me, for seasoned investors, says a lot. It means you're not overly concerned with hoarding your cash because you don't know if any more is going to be coming in. And a lot of small caps. So that's just one of those, beacons I want to point out to shareholders that spoke pretty loudly to me that you're really confident in your current cash position and cash position.
Yeah, and you're right. And this was not a flippant decision. It wasn't an overnight decision. This was a very thoughtful decision that was based on really us understanding what the inflow of warrant conversion funds looked like, offset against cash that's being generated in our operations. Everyone must be mindful of the fact that we have revenue producing divisions generating profits each day, paying for employees, paying our overhead, supporting itself in these development plans. That is overlaid by the cash reserves that we have that I'm very careful about. I'm careful about how we utilize that cash. And then finally, we ultimately know that we have strong investment banking support and access to growth capital as required. But again, we're being very thoughtful about that as well, and not necessarily rushing. But we'll obviously update everybody on any events that do come up. But as I look at our landscape overall and what our needs are, I certainly feel very good about the base that we're working with, and that isn't maybe reflected each day for shareholders if you're concerned about volatility on a daily market, and I'm very concerned about it as well, and we pay close attention. But if you consider where we are in terms of just business fundamentals as a company, we are in super solid ground right now.
All right, let's move on to the next topic. Share price activity. Obviously, that's something that's top of mind of everybody. Give us your comments, and we're not looking for, and for everyone at home, Steve can't give price projections and those that, but what are your comments about the activity? And do you have any concerns, long-term concerns about what's going on?
Well, long-term concerns I don't have. Short-term volatility happens. We're paying a lot of attention to it. We have a great army of supportive followers out there, and I'm grateful for everybody. We get a lot of feedback and comments. I understand the nervousness. I understand the trepidation that a particular shareholder might have. It's much more fun to watch the stock blow through $2 and everybody's high-fiving each other. But there are often market corrections that are out of our control. Broader markets have been off as well, and I think that's had an impact. So it's not just about us.
Especially NASDAQ, the tech side, the risk.
Well, exactly. NASDAQ particularly had a tough go late last week and also in this week again.
And for everyone at home, it's off 10%, including today. The NASDAQ is off 10% of highs, which is not a crash or like that, but we're in risk off mode, right? You and I, Steve, know what that means. Sometimes you're in risk on mode. Market seems to be in a little bit of risk off mode.
Yeah, it does.
For now.
It does. And so, we had some disappointing catalysts that probably didn't help the cause. But, we are doing, there's some things that we can do, which is bring market support to kind of help push back, keep the pressure on, support the buy side, so that we can, kind of come through this time. So we've absolutely activated, support, and we will just, our commitment is to keep up with the good news, the story, the execution of transactions, the growth initiatives, and I'll continue to talk to our good shareholder base, often, as often as I can, and communicate with as much transparency as I possibly can, to provide reassurance that we're here. I'm not backing down. We're not going to shy away from tough situations or tough conversations, or making decisions that are difficult, and taking action if it's so deemed. But everybody should know I'm aware. We're watching it as close as everybody else is. But we also have a day job to do, which is to build a great company. So we can't lose sight of that.
And that's how you ultimately get this done. And I'm going to add in, if you don't mind, Stephen, and actually maybe you should first, but as a general rule of thumb, when you're investing, we're not talking about Empower right now. As a general rule of thumb, when you're investing for wealth in growth stocks, you're going to go through periods of tribulation, no matter what. Look at Tesla, look at any of the great technology growth stocks in the last decade. Man, they have had some roller coaster rides, right? But if you don't judge a company by its stock price, either when it's really high and say it's the best company in the world, or it's come down and say it's the worst company in the world, if you continue to judge it strictly by what it is doing and whether it's on plan, that's how you stay in a company, and that's how you create generational wealth. But you tell me your thoughts on that, and I think everyone would rather hear what you have to say.
Well, I think you're completely accurate. It's just, it stings at the time. That's all. And, so if you take myself as an example, I, of course, love seeing our stock flying high, but I'm just a net holder anyhow. So it kind of just, for me, it's maybe a little bit different, because my view is absolutely of that long-term position on it. What is the intrinsic value going to be years from now, when we find ourselves on bigger markets and we have broader exposure to, the large US shareholder base and international investment community? What do we look like then?
Yeah.
And that's what I have in my mind, other than the distractions of having to deal with the noise of the day.
Sure.
Which, I'm just, it's part of the job, and I accept it, and I'm prepared to work through it. I'm not a person who's going to stick my head in the sand and avoid, these difficult days. But from a long-term perspective, which is where my head is at, I think about that. I dream about those points in time, and work towards those points in time, because you don't get there magically. You get there with hard work. You get there with real strategic and a planning approach. You get there by working smart. No one's going to outwork me or outwork our company. Everybody has that commitment from us. I think everybody knows how the long hours that I work and the late nights that we go. Because it's important.
I've been on midnight calls getting stuff done quite a bit. I know exactly what your work ethic is, that's for sure.
So, it takes all of that to get through this, and it takes all of it to, build the kind of company that we want to build. But we're doing it, and everybody must be assured that we are doing it every day. And, the great shareholder value is already here. I mean, goodness, look, if we wind back, I don't know, 3 or 4 months of time, and we told everybody, we're going to be, a dollar stock, in the first quarter, everybody be high-fiving nonstop.
Yeah, of course.
So we just kind of set the bar a little higher than we even thought it would get to. So it's almost like we have this kind of new expectation of where we're going. But this stuff takes time, but we're proving to ourselves, we're proving to the market that we have the right to start to be in these types of valuations and stay there and grow.
And if you don't mind, I'll give a quick 15-second recent anecdotal evidence as for everyone at home. One of our recent big investments is an esports entertainment group that's on the NASDAQ now. But we started with that at $2 a share, and we had highs and lows. And trust me, we had times like this right now. We had times like this, where because sometimes the market does what it's going to do. Today, NASDAQ $24 a share, hit that high, sitting at $20 or so now. As long as you know that the company is doing the right thing and it's on plan, then you hate times like this, but it doesn't shake you. And I'm not saying that as investment advice for Empower. Everyone at home has got to decide that on their own. But that's how I've always done it, and that's what creates incredible wealth when you don't get distracted. So with that in mind, let's get to some questions, Steve.
Yeah, you bet.
First one is from I got Omer Power and Mike Banning. I'm going to kind of combine them. Hello, Steve. According to shortdata.ca, there are approximately 45 million shares shorted against Empower. Can you give us insight and actions that are being taken against this short attack? Keep up the great work. But Mike just added in, says, in last night's interview with Landon, you stated that the short position is not 45 million shares as reported by shortdata.ca, but significantly lower. Maybe you could reconcile those two statements and what the company may or may not be doing about it.
Sure. So our source of information, with all of this going on, I actually called the regulators yesterday, which is IROC, and had a conversation with them just to say, look, you should be aware, this something, is happening, and can you give me some guidance on getting access to data? What information do you see? Do you have tools at your disposal that we don't have? So IROC publishes a bi-weekly short position report. The last report that's available is February 22nd. There's a new one coming. The short position, as quoted on Empower at that date, was 2.5 million shares or something around that nature. I commented to the regulator that we're hearing that there's as much as a 40 million short position. He started looking at it like right then and there, and he just said, I just don't see that. And his comment back to me was, if we saw numbers like that, we would be concerned also. It just seems out of scale. So the source of the information, I just don't know, that sort of full number. But from a regulator standpoint, I've called it to their attention. I've asked them to look into it. I don't know whether we'll get a response from them or not. They don't make a commitment that way. But we certainly are, doing our own investigations just to make sure that we understand if there are any sort of market forces that are impacting us negatively that really shouldn't be happening. And again, any further information that I get that I can share, I'll absolutely share it with our audience.
All right. Thank you for that. Jay Gao, what do you think has caused the recent drop in your share price? I'm not sure. Are we under attack by short sellers? And did you announce any bad news recently? No bad news recently. So
no bad news to announce. It certainly appears or feels like some sort of attack of some sort, and then maybe momentum. People for whatever reason get nervous about the stock, but they shouldn't be nervous about the company. So just unfortunately, it's kind of a combination of a bunch of things like that have happened. We're pushing back. We're mobilizing, sort of buying support to help sort of soak up any selling that might show up at a particular point in time during a trading day, and hopefully that starts to get this turned around. And anybody on short positions, if the stock is going up, they're going to disappear from that position. So we're hopeful that some of that momentum will come back our way.
Yeah, always remember, short positions are, just listen to the name, right? Short, it's short term. They're not around forever.
Yeah.
So how long, can't say, but they're not around forever. That's for sure. Enderby asks, he or she did some calculation, said that there's been about $100 million in market cap losses. Do you think that $100 million is an immaterial amount of money for this company? And was it a case of the rise to 250 was mismanaged by management or the market maker, or is it the drop mismanaged by management or the market maker? I know the answer to that, but
well, the rises up are not controlled by me or the company. The falls are not controlled by me or the company either. We're not in the position to influence it that way. What we can control is our own performance. What we can control is our execution. What we can control are doing accretive transactions, and we can control notifying our followers and being transparent and communicating regularly and often, so everybody fully understands what's going on and then can make their own investment decisions. So the concept of, did it fall too quickly, or the question was $100 million of market cap decline, is it a problem? So it's not a problem in the sense that it affects my balance sheet today, or it affects my operations today. The impact really only would be felt if you were actually doing a financing, and it had a potential impact to either reduce your valuation on the terms of your financing, or you may decide to do a lower financing because you don't want the extra dilution at a certain price point. So it doesn't, optically, you don't like to see it, that share price and market cap, come down, but it doesn't impact, what we're doing each day in our operations, today, where we sit, again, because we've got a really nice position with our balance sheet and our operational sort of strength.
Yeah, that's the great part. This isn't damaging the company that way.
No.
And there is some talk about who's the market maker of this stock, who's the market maker for the stock of this company. I think it's important for people at home to realize that the job of a market maker, if there is one, is not to take your share price up or anything like that. The job of the market maker is just to make sure there's an orderly market.
Yeah.
There isn't a massive imbalance where the bid is 10 cents and the ask is $3. Right? That's the job of the market maker, to create an orderly market. It's the same as is on New York Stock, the floor of the New York Stock Exchange, as it is on the CSE, correct?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, that's just a scale difference. That's all.
Yeah, but we people at home shouldn't have and it's okay that we're correcting that, but the job of the market maker is not to protect the price and move it up. It's for them to create and get rid of imbalances. Right. Mike Banning, he brings up something here I've seen this on the boards also, so I want to ask you this because I've seen it. I think we need to address it. The Q&A is great and all, but it's not going to alleviate the short attack. You need to release concrete news. Have you thought about providing weekly test metrics like some startup tech companies do? I see this mantra for the need for news, and I point out to people the need for news. We're 65 days into the new year. Go take a look at the news that's already been released. What do you have to say, shareholders, about you need to release concrete news?
Well, I think that we do a pretty good job of it, quite frankly. We're very thoughtful about news. A press release for the sake of a press release, isn't really a good pattern to get into. We don't want to be known for sort of fluffy news. We're working on lots of transactions. We're working on opening our healthcare centers. We're working on RFPs and bids for, public sector and private sector through Kai Medical. I can't control exactly when deals get done. I can't control, a government bid or an airport, RFP and when they will respond to us. We just have to work, play by their rules or whatever the case may be. And to the extent that, something pops, by rule, we need to announce it, by the next business day. Like we know how it works. But we're trying to get into, a fairly consistent rhythm, and not even trying. We are in a consistent rhythm of
I think so.
Providing news. I mean, there's no doubt. And sometimes certain news items are bigger than others. That's just not everything is going to be a giant home run piece of news.
Yeah,
That's impossible. There's a lot to be said for news that says, you know what, things are nice and steady, operations are good. That's also very valuable, right? So, I guess that's how I respond. Mike is a great follower. I get some messages from time to time, and we see him on the AGORACOM board. So I hear what you're saying. We will continue to think about how we can report KPIs, going forward, and what are those regular KPIs that we are allowed to report, because we also run the risk of running afoul of the concept of providing guidance and aspects like that. So there are just some situations where my hands are tied. We've got to operate within the rules, and not come under scrutiny.
I got to say the cadence of the Empower press release has been fantastic. So on the lab side, acquire the lab, new contract for the lab, record revenues for the lab, we're expanding the lab. I think that cadence has been tremendous. Yeah. On the clinic side, I think that cadence has been tremendous. On the new product side, the Kai Saliva, first 5,000 were spoken for, or another 25,000. Now we're applying in Canada. Then we got into Canada. I think the cadence has been great personally, and actually impressive from a business point of view, because none of those were fluff. Like you said, there are significant milestones every time you announce. So I think you guys have been doing great. Craig Scott 1500. Hi, Steve. Excellent job you and the team have done over such a short period of time. Thank you. What is the current status of the 25,000 rapid test kits that you purchased back in January? Can you share how many of that batch has been sold, and has more been ordered due to anticipated demand?
So again, going back to the KPIs, I mean, we're selling those kits. We obviously have done our first shipments to Canada. The first shipments I did to Canada were small quantities going to Toronto, Ottawa, and Vancouver. And the reason I did small quantities is I needed to test Canada Customs and test Health Canada and make sure that they were going to let us get our kits into the country and without a problem. So then we'll have a much set of larger shipments coming. The kits are the new saliva test kits are being used by our customers today, and a lot of different types of customers. From our different contracts, our commercial accounts. We're including those in bids now as well. And of course, we're incredibly excited for direct to consumer with kaitest.com. I think it's going to be a great channel for us, and bring really good exposure. The latter part of the question is the short answer is yes. We're planning on an additional upsized order to be placed. So we have to order the medical device, and we get that shipped to our fulfillment center in Florida, and it's there that the boxes are created, stuffed, packaged, boxed up, ready for sale. So we're going to go back into that cycle again to make sure that I don't want to run out of inventory. And it's hard to forecast when you've got a newer product, kind of how what your sales cycle will look like, and what your volumes look like. But we do have the working capital, so we can afford to do a bigger order and make sure that our supply chain is stocked up accordingly.
Now the test kit samples have arrived in Canada, and you kind of alluded to this earlier. Curious to know how the discussions with potential private and public sector companies is going, and initial thoughts and feedback.
Yeah, so all initial thoughts and feedback from the various groups that I've spoken with have been positive. Every single one of them wants a sample. Everybody wants to explore, is this possible? Does this product set fit for us? If it does fit for us, how do we pilot that? What does point of sale look like? So these are all questions that each of the various groups, and I'm talking about groups from East Coast to West Coast and everything in between. So we're just we're happy to have the samples and the product here now. We provided all the technical specifications to the various groups that we're talking to. And from here, it's literally the first samples are in people's hands, within the last couple of days. So the feedback loop is definitely going to accelerate here over the next little while. And let's see if we can get some pilot orders or pilot agreements in place, and we'll also start to put them into our clinics too. So there's no reason why we can't put them on the shelves there and sell them to our our patients who are coming in each and every day.
What do you expect in terms of timeline for responses? If you send samples to AGORACOM, a potential distributor, would it be fair to give them a couple of weeks to test and get back to you, or a few days?
Well,
I have no, just to give people an indication what you're thinking.
Yeah, of course, every company's different, but
sure.
we're dealing with a scenario here where it's a very in-demand product, and it's very appropriate and in need in our society today. So everybody is saying, look, we're going to turn this around quickly. Like we know that this could be a product that would be great for our customers wherever they may be, and it could also be good for us as a brand and as a business. So this is not going to be a month from now. People are we're having to chase them. I think we're getting back our responses from the various groups very quickly. So
and they're strongly motivated too, right? This isn't
everybody's
just,
motivated.
Hey, check out my new widget, let me know what you think. There's a definite everyone's motivated across this entire chain.
Correct.
Kunster, what are the setbacks because of Dusting's resignation? Do you have a replacement in mind shortly?
So there are no setbacks. It was something that we decided together that it would be best for Empower, best for him as an individual, his other interests that he would like to pursue, and given the circumstances and the catalyst from the past couple of weeks, we felt together it was the right thing to do. It's the right message for our good shareholders, and it's an important message also for the rest of my team members. We will be replacing that director position very quickly. We'll be announcing that in the very, very near future. We're working through candidates. We, by rule, need to have that third director position in place. So this is not something that can wait any amount of time. So we will, I'll update everybody in the very near future on that.
And growth investor asks, because there are going to be a lot of people who may not understand that, even though you put out the press release on Monday. Can you explain the whole Dustin Klein situation, and have you had talks with others about insider selling during this extreme growth phase of the company?
Yeah, so it's a great question. So I can tell you specifically one of my internal responses to these events is the weekend following that time period, a couple of weeks ago, I'd asked our securities lawyer to prepare a memo on the policies of insider trading and our insider trading policy and everything related to that. That memo I then circulated to the leadership team members in the company, in the different divisions, as a mechanism to provide education, a forum to provide conversation, that these topics are very real and can have a material impact on our company. And if a problem, it could and may result in up to and including termination. So I took steps immediately. There was no delay whatsoever, and I felt it was serious enough that a technical legal memo needed to be drafted. It was a 12-page memo covering all of those policies that someone like myself, am covered by, as what I'm obviously deemed a registered insider. So anyhow, so that was the response internally. I think it's important as we scale, as we have more visibility, compliance, health and safety, policies, procedures, as it relates to our company, to our board of directors, our governance policies, have to be as tight. We have to operate like we're a Fortune 500 company. We have to operate now and behave now like we're already on NASDAQ. You don't just snap your fingers and show up and say, oh gosh, we've got to create policy. We're a public company. We're whether we're a $10 million market cap or a $10 billion market cap, the policies, the procedures, and the rules are the same.
Yeah.
So if we want to be there and play in these big leagues, well, we better operate today like we want to be there. And so we took this opportunity to really, put a strong reminder out to our entire organization that we take these matters very seriously.
All right, and that was clear as day, and I think a lot of shareholders really appreciated that, Steve, and thanks for touching on that as well. CuneStar also had another question. What is the status of testing contract negotiations? So I guess that's for Kai Lab.
Yeah, I mean, we talked
about
what's the
pipeline. If I had to more accurately say, what's the pipeline there?
Yeah, the pipeline is as strong and deep as ever. It's actually very diverse now because we've been connecting ourselves to kind of public sector, private sector type scenarios. So whether it's we're having conversations with airlines and cruise lines and travel bubbles, and working with Loop Insights, on joint initiatives. We did the Dallas Market Center, bid was a real fast one. It turned around very quickly, and we got that. And these other airport ones that we're working on, and these new government bids are really intriguing. The U.S. government is spending a great deal of money on these programs, but it's very difficult to even qualify to even submit a bid. So we've been working on it for quite some time behind the scenes, but we've got a great partner that we're working with who's a specialist in U.S. government bids, and we found a really nice kind of mechanism. And there are lots of opportunities out there. Not everyone fits us, whether it's geographically, whether it's the type of services that perhaps are requested, but there are many of them that are a fit. And I think that we have as much of a right to be bidding on those as any of the big guns that are out there. And so we're taking a crack at them. So we'll see what happens. But we're definitely, really pushing the business development activity because we want more growth. We've got capacity at the lab, and we want to fill that capacity.
Growth Investor had one more question. Actually, he's got another question about Rexall, but I'm going to include it with some questions further below. Does the reopening of Texas, interesting question, does the reopening of Texas and non-mandatory mask use negatively affect the quantity of tests at Kai?
Does the reopening of Texas? So right now, we don't have indicators that it does. I mean, the indicators that we have around the requirements for commercial testing, so companies getting back to work, employees getting back to work, that need for testing, is still with us. The executive travel orders absolutely are. There's no correlation to Texas opening up. If you want to try to travel out of the United States, you are going to have to produce a negative COVID test, or you're not getting on your plane. If you're trying to get back into the United States, you have to produce that negative COVID test. So the testing paradigm and structure that is now on us based on the pandemic over the past year is everything points to it's going to continue in its form for a substantial amount of time.
I'm going to say, in fact, it might even increase business. I'll tell you why. If I'm running a chain of restaurants now, George's Chicken, and they're all opening up again, in order to protect my staff and the customers, I'm probably going to be doing more testing, because
Yeah.
the last thing I need is one employee infecting other employees, and then I can't even open now that it finally is open. So
That's right.
that's just my theory, but I think it's going to increase testing
Well,
substantially.
what it's also doing is we're seeing a almost like a diversification of the testing profile. So if we take the full spectrum of testing from, gold standard is a PCR test, whether it's a nasal pharyngeal swab or it's a saliva test, it's still a PCR at the end of the day. Then you've got rapid antibody and rapid antigen, which we should categorize as screening, and the PCR being the actual test that confirms your negative or your positive status. So we're seeing greater demand and utilization of screening tools, being rapid antigen and then rapid antibody. And we're seeing businesses, public sector, hospitals, clinics, whatever it might be, wanting to validate post-vaccination that someone actually does in fact have the antibodies, because there's still a lot of questions about the full efficacy, the amount of time that there'll be full efficacy on the vaccine itself, and that true, what the effectiveness percentage will be. So we're seeing indicators that rapid antibody tests may be deployed to, in fact, validate that someone, is carrying the actual antibodies, and is in fact their vaccination is working. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with rapid, but there's definitely a big uptick in demand for rapid tests, and we're seeing bids coming through for those products as well. So it's not just about PCR; it's also about rapid, because of the need for screening going forward.
Yeah, I think that's the more open. I think the more testing is going to be required, more screening. I think all of that,
Yeah, exactly,
is going to happen. Ty Butch, hi Steve. First off, congrats to you and your team with the Rexall deal and others with Kai Lab. Thanks for all the hard work you're all putting in, helping out with your COVID testing business plan, creating bubbles in all kinds of business to get the world working again. Healthier people means less money spent on our public healthcare systems, and I kind of condensed that a little bit. So thanks for saying that, Ty Butch. So the question is your Rexall Canada agreement for your clinic rollout exclusive to them? If not, are you planning an expansion into the second biggest market in Canada, being Quebec?
So we don't at this early stage have contemplate any form of exclusivity with partners like that. To what we intend to do is to prove ourselves, earn our way through the relationship and the scaling of the relationship. That's the way that you start with big organizations. You don't go from no relationship to 100%, and it's a process, and it's a journey based on meeting milestones and achieving service level agreements. The question over Quebec is, we've started some preliminary conversations with some groups that are stronger in the East. And to your point, Quebec is a second largest market in the country, a market that we would like to figure out how we can play a role in. We obviously are starting our rollout right now in the province of Ontario on the health center side. But we absolutely have sent samples of products to distribution partners that are based in Quebec. And these are the Kai saliva test kit samples. So, that may be kind of where some of our footprint might start in terms of generating business and revenue in markets like Quebec and further east.
And he did, and by the way, it's Mark Boucher, because I see at the end, Mark Boucher or Ty Butch asked, and you probably can't be specific, but I want to ask it, could Pharmaprix in Quebec, which is owned by Loblaws, or be a possible partner, or Jean Coutu? I guess everyone can be a potential partner.
Yeah, they're absolutely. So, I mean, the short answer on that one is yes. And again, I just, can't overly give guidance on what conversations are taking place. But all I can say is, it's the very, largest organizations with a very diverse footprint, throughout the communities in those markets.
So Mark, great question. He then goes on to also ask, when will the Kai test website come live? Where I know that. We're hoping it might be pushed as early as tomorrow. Best regards, all the best, and you all stay safe. I think it's really nice when people say something like that.
Thank you.
And I'm sure he's saying that to everybody on the webcast that's even watching. With the growth investor, also had a couple follow-up questions. With the new MetaPro partnership, will you be selling PCR tests directly through MetaPro? And will they receive some sort of revenue generated from that? And are you still waiting for your own MDEL license, or are you going to use MetaPro from here on out?
Yeah, so the couple of questions there. So the MetaPro relationship has a couple of facets. It tends to be more on them opening doors. The Right Honorable Sheila Copps and myself, really we're in communication and dialogue every day. And she's becoming a good friend, and she's a great door opener. So there's a referral structure that, if doors get open and we win business, then there's an opportunity for them to earn referral fees. Some of the other initiatives that MetaPro are working on are kind of their own programs. And to the extent that we could be a supplier of services or a supplier of test kits to them or through them, then we would look at those opportunities as well. So those are the kind of the two sides to kind of what we're doing with MetaPro Canada. The MDEL situation for ourselves is looking very good. So we just got some recent updates. So we anticipate being able to share that positive news in the very near future. And but thankfully, with the relationship with MetaPro, we've been able to leverage their MDEL status, so much so that product has come to Canada, and I can provide samples to potential partners. So it's all working.
In terms of the lab expansion, 3x, how long will it take to deliver, install, and validate new equipment to scale up your capacity, if you're ordering new equipment at all right now?
Yeah, so it's a great question. So in the design plan of the expansion, one of the things that we're not doing is we are not moving any of our scientific medical equipment. So we don't need to, we don't want to. What we're doing is we're creating the room for all the other operational components of Kai Medical to get out of the way of the scientists and leave the scientists more room to work,
right?
More structure around what they have for their equipment. We are adding additional equipment for sure. They need other equipment to handle more capacity. But so we're not revalidating any equipment whatsoever. It's one of the reasons why we didn't want to move. Because if you move a piece of equipment to another address, you have to literally start the revalidation process in that new address. And that creates time, delays, and lost opportunity costs. So this is a much more elegant solution for us. We blast a door in between the two units, and we move more operational things like customer service, call center, materials handling, shipping, packaging, all those other things that you have to do. And imagine you've got, 1,000 specimens coming your way in a day. That's a lot of handling. And so we want to take some of that stuff outside of the science and give it into better space. It's really getting operational excellence and giving the Kai team the ability to go and hire the staff they need to fulfill the demand that's upon us.
Yeah, and you're ordering new equipment, and there's now all the room in all the room you need to get even more equipment if you want to get there.
Correct.
Then growth investor had a question about Rexall, but I think we've kind of answered everything related to Rexall in terms of where the relationship is and growth and all that. So we'll probably leave that aside. Razor Pants, can you please provide some details on the process of searching and recruiting physicians for the clinics? What incentives are in place for established physicians with existing client bases to move, and are physicians new to the industry presented the opportunity for recruitment? So is it new physicians? Is it current physicians with established practices? Who are you bringing in, and how are you
Yeah.
recruiting them?
So we one of our strengths is the ability to recruit. Dr. Aviv and Dr. Jordan, they work with the colleges. They've got a vast network themselves. I can't give any specifics about our recruiting policies. I certainly can't talk about compensation or incentives or fees. It's confidential in nature. If anybody is a physician and is interested in talking to us or potentially coming on board in any market that we may go into, I would recommend that you send an email to our info@empowerclinics.com, and we will absolutely forward that information to our recruiting team. But it's one of the things that our partners like most is our ability to find, recruit, sign, and then manage those physicians going forward.
Mike Banning also had a couple more questions, but it's about the opening of Texas. We've dealt with that. KaiTest.com, we've dealt with that. We talked about the short position, so we've dealt with that. So Mike, thanks for those questions. Enter a name here. Well, that's a great handle. Enter a name here. Has Empower Kai submitted a bid for the following? Canadian Department of National Defence, DND, has requirement to procure COVID-19 proficiency testing for 20 Canadian Armed Forces labs across Canada. Are you able to comment about something like that?
Yeah, so the comment is, because it's public information, is we have in fact registered for that bid. That registration process has closed, and I believe the closure was yesterday. What we're investigating is what exactly are they looking for? It's a little bit ambiguous in the preliminary information that's there. So we're in email dialogue with them and phone dialogue to get clarification on, are they looking for COVID-19 testing products? Are they looking for COVID-19 testing services? Are they looking for rapid kits? Or are they looking for someone to go into their labs and do some lab equipment validation, which is something that we don't do. It's not something that we would even bid for. So because of the ambiguity, we just have to get a little bit more clarification. And once we have that clarification, then we'll proceed accordingly.
Mark Boucher has gone on task, and I think we've dealt with this as well. Can you start providing total COVID test number by month and all other Kai lab test numbers monthly? And I think you mentioned earlier that you got to be careful you don't get into
we do
guidance and all that. So I think we've dealt with that, right?
Yeah, correct. It's a bit of a tricky subject. The securities lawyers and I have talked about that quite extensively. So we really have to be careful. The one way that it ultimately becomes visible is when we file our financial statements. So though that unit disclosure will be there, and it's at that point that, because it would be public information, then I can talk about what it was historically. Where we get ourselves into a bit of trouble potentially is forecasting it at this stage in the market that we're in.
Enter a name here also had, I shouldn't say he, because I'm not sure who it is. Health Canada recently amended the status of API rapid antigen test to awaiting response from manufacturer. Can you elaborate on what the inquiry is for and whether we can expect an approval in the near future, days or weeks?
Yeah, it's tough. Health Canada is a tough one to kind of navigate through. They just, as an example, with our MDL application, they simply would not commit to any time frame whatsoever. The Health Canada submission that we're the registered Canadian correspondent on through API Pharma is, it's positive that the status, has improved, awaiting information. Dr. DeGeneiro and I, Dr. DeGeneiro is the founder and president of API Pharma. We're actually messaging over the last couple of days on a few of these topics. And so I don't have the answer to the question right now, but once I get a response, then I can update. I certainly do not know what a timeline would look like for Health Canada to approve it. I do know that there were, I believe, 2 rapid antigen tests that were recently approved. So perhaps they're starting to get through. Perhaps kind of the political aspect of it that was delaying rapid tests is starting to ease, as we all begin to understand that screening using rapid antigen tests is positive. It's good to have that. It can help the scenario. It can help old age homes. It can help care centers and hospitals and businesses. So perhaps that's what's happening, and maybe we might get lucky and get some positive news out of this.
Okay, so we're down to our last 2 questions, but I did miss one up top, so I just want to circle back because I just realized when we're hopping around there trying to group some questions together. One of them was the Reopen Vancouver initiative with Rob Anson at Loop Insights.
Yeah.
How's that going? And have you guys thought about taking that on the road internationally? And they specifically asked, I can't remember where it was, sorry, because further up, like Reopen New Zealand, for example. Sure. How's Reopen Vancouver going, and what are the chances that something like that could be ported into other jurisdictions if it all goes well?
Yeah, I think the initiative definitely has a lot of merit. We still continue to see the federal and provincial sort of government responses is really just about setting policy. There seems to be a struggle to provide solutions, and private sector companies like Loop Insights and ourselves have complementary solutions to reopen, get a market back open. And we've had to go and talk to the hotel chains, talk to the airports, the airlines, talk to sporting venues and leagues to get their willingness to help support us on this. And it's difficult because many of these sectors, the fundamental response is we don't have any money right now, and it's truthful because they've been shattered economically, and the government is not providing funds to help create a pilot per se. And we need to generate data. We need to prove the proof of concept that you could do a bubble event in an arena for a concert and have advanced testing and have contact tracing and have it all tied into the wallet pass and actually make it work on a controllable pilot. And we see some of those things taking place in the US, more so than we're seeing in Canada. So we just want to continue to drive the agenda. We continue to have the conversations with the hope that we can get to some forms of a pilot with participation from hotels, arenas, restaurant groups, whatever the case may be, so that we can show our ministers of health and show the federal government that these private sector companies do in fact have viable solutions.
Snake Babu, we answered questions 1, 2, and 3 for you. What's next thing on the horizon? We've covered that pretty intently with everything. When will we know the results of the RFPs, and is there any feedback from the regulators for the API? So API test. So we've answered those 3. The 4th question they had, we haven't touched on. How do you feel about the new 5-minute test that was developed in Edmonton?
Well, I don't know a lot about it, frankly.
Yeah, I don't know much about it.
So it's, I certainly can go take a look at it. There are certainly a variety of testing systems. We're looking at the cube systems, the sort of desktop PCR system. There's some pros, there's some cons. The pros are it's at point of care. The cons are you can only do 8 samples at a time, and it still takes about 90 minutes. So it's not very scalable, right? You'd have to have hundreds of those units to and hundreds of med techs to administer just to get some volume.
Yeah, be an army.
Such as an event bubble. So it's difficult. Getting these viable solutions to market is definitely tough. But we're going to continue. We think that our Kai COVID-19 saliva test, home-based test is a real winner. We think that's a product that people will understand and will utilize. We think the brand is nice, and I'm looking forward to getting feedback from people.
Last question, and I'm smiling. Norwich Nick Wilson. This is a great question. What a great way to end it off. Question for Steve. I'm not selling a single share. My question is, should I name my yacht the Thank You Steve or Paid For by Steve? We believe in you.
Well, thank you. I'll look forward to whatever that answer is. You can send me a photo and on your champagne christening, and watch you sail away and enjoy the spoils. So nothing would make me happier than to see that day come along for any of our shareholders. So let's stay the course on this journey. This too shall pass, as they say, and let's not forget how great our fundamentals are. Look what we're working with today compared to where we were just a quarter or two ago.
Yeah.
It's really quite astonishing. So thank you everybody for your constant support. I'm here, I'm listening, we're paying attention to you, paying attention to all the noise that's out there. And I look forward to, not talking about short attacks and things like that in the future. But I guess it's part of our journey at this point in time.
And as someone who's been through this many times, if you believe in a company, then you don't worry about short-term spikes and dips. You just stay the course with the company. That's how I've made, thankfully, I'm very grateful, several, big wins in my life. And hopefully that's something all you're going to determine at home. Steve, thanks so much, man, for joining us today. Great Q&A. Went over a lot of stuff. Most important, though, it's amazing to see how strong the company is. Can't wait to see what you've done the last 24 months was Herculean. And now with all the divisions going, cash behind you, fantastic resources. I can't wait to see where we're going to be 6-12 months from now. And thanks for being here.
Great, George. Thank you for the time. I really appreciate this platform.
For everybody at home, remember, especially during times like this where there's a little bit of shaking going on and you need great verified information, make sure to take advantage of the Empower Clinic verified forum on AGORACOM. That's the place where you see Empower's IR people. You've seen Steve there. They've got the check mark beside their name. Just be wary. We respect all of the forums too, but we do know that they're not verified. So there are people who say things that can't be verified. They have ulterior motives. And if you really want to get the answers to your questions, that's where you post them and you get them straight from the horse's mouth. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Have a fantastic day. See you next time.